because it has been a doozy of a week on this front. They basically are trying to tell us that there are no signs of a recession. Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, literally said there's no signs of a recession. Like, everything's hunky-dory. It's going great, guys. The economy's strong. Like, they are literally running with this narrative. And I've seen some, political maneuvering in my time. I've seen politicians try to split things and put spin on it. But this is a level that's actually new even to me, where they're taking it right now.
Yeah, I just don't understand how, with gas prices this high right now, they can afford to keep gaslighting us time and time again on the economy. But it's like, I think it's, 1984, where it's like, how many fingers am I holding up? And he's holding up 5 fingers, but he's demanding that you say 4, and they keep demanding it until you say 4. It's like, nothing to see here, folks. Now, the important context folks need to be aware of is that informally, not technically, but the traditional definition of a recession that's always been used in politics and the media is when you have 2 quarters in a row where the economy is shrinking and decreasing, not growing. The national gross domestic product, the amount of stuff we build and make in a year, is actually getting smaller, not bigger, for 2 quarters in a row. And that's about to happen, basically. Last quarter was already significantly negative growth. And then on Thursday, the next quarter comes out, the data, and it's expected to be significantly in the red as well, which would mean that by all traditional accounts, people would start to informally say we're in a recession. The White House is trying to get ahead of that. And they're coming out this week saying, actually, that's not what a recession is anymore. So let me read you this thread from the White House Council of Economic Advisors, their statement. While some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of falling real GDP constitute a recession, that is neither the official definition nor the way economists evaluate the state of the business cycle. Instead, both official determinations of recessions and economists' assessment of economic activity are based on a holistic look at the data. And based on these data, it is unlikely that the decline in GDP in the first quarter of this year, even if followed by another GDP decline in the second quarter, indicates a recession. And they point out that the National Bureau of Economic Research, which is not a government body, it's an academic body, does not define it with this 2 quarters rule, but defines a recession as a significant decline in economic activity that is spread across the economy and that lasts more than a few months. I'll just say, Hannah, that my BS alarm is going off all over the place. My political spin alarm. Was this a red flag for you, this preemptive spin?
Yeah, well, and I certainly think when it comes to their messaging, which they're talking to the average American citizen right now, I think they know that most people are not super adept at economics, and they know that probably the average American doesn't really know what quantifies as a recession. And so they're taking this opportunity to try to spin things. I do think it's disingenuous. Traditionally, in the media, in most political dialogue, we have defined a recession as 2 quarters of this type of slowed growth.
And sorry to interrupt, but just real quick, actually, multiple federal laws Phil Magnus, an economic historian, pointed this out on Twitter. Multiple federal laws use the 2 quarters definition of a recession to trigger special budgetary and economic policies in federal law. So this is not just some shorthand. It's a pretty established thing.
Yes. And yes, you could get into, and we will for a minute here, you can get into the other factors that economists often consider when evaluating the overall health of an economy. And it is true that there are some good indications in our economy right now. Not everything is bad. For one example, you do still have strong job growth, a good job market for people. That's very good for workers. That gives them a lot more power to negotiate their salaries. That being said, though, we've seen wages stagnate. We see that people are losing money both in their savings and in their income. And as a whole, when you look at the reality of the economy, I think the average American, whether or not they've ever taken an econ class or not, knows that things are not good and that we are kind of on the precipice of a cliff. Everybody knows things are not looking good. The stock market's not looking good.
Your 401k.
401k. Oh my gosh, I had a meeting with my investment advisor this week, and he was, very apologetic. He's like, there's only so much we can do. You're down 13.1%. And, I'm still young, so that's fine. I'll make that up over time. But like people like my parents who are approaching retirement, that's not the case for them. These are really big deals that have a long-term impact on people's retirement and their savings. And I'm more fortunate than most. Some people's are down 19, 20% over time. So these are things that really, I think the American people are not going to respond well to, because you can only tell people that their lived experience isn't actually reality for so long until they rebel. And the reality is people are still spending a ton of money at the gas tank. People's grocery bills are through the roof. The price of meat is outrageous. And as a whole, people are having to cut back. They're making decisions based on how they're experiencing the economy right now. And so for this administration to run around saying there's no signs of a recession, we're going to change the traditional definition of what a recession is, it's frankly offensive. And it says to me they have not only no plan to get this under control, no actual desire to seek real outcomes that would better the lives of the American people, but they're going to do the next offensive thing, which is to lie to you and to tell you that this isn't actually happening to you. So I'm mad about it.
I've always said that I think the Biden administration would fare better. To me, their current approach is like that meme of this little yellow dog inside a room that's on fire, and the caption just says, "This is fine," and he's like staring blank-faced at the camera. That's kind of what I get from the Biden administration right now. Like, this is fine, nothing to see here, as inflation is surging, the economy is shrinking, people's real wages, once you account for inflation, have decreased by something like 5% over the last year. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but they've gone down significantly. The unemployment rate, like you mentioned, is low. That is good. But there's also still a lot of workers on the sidelines. And the unemployment rate only counts folks who are looking for work. So people who dropped out of the labor force aren't captured in that. The job numbers are strong, yes. But inflation, stocks, investments, our beloved crypto, lots of things aren't looking so hot right now. And polls overwhelmingly show that the vast majority of the public doesn't think the economy is doing well, doesn't think the country's on the right track. And I think the Biden administration would be better served by acknowledging that reality, acknowledging their pain, and saying, we're doing our best. And maybe even like blaming other people and saying, Republicans won't work with us to get your bills down or whatever, even if that's not true. Just say that. But don't deny the pain they're experiencing. I think Americans are going to really hate that and really punish the Democrats for that, because that really pisses people off when you tell them, no, you're not getting poorer. No, your wallet's not being stretched further. Everything is fine. We're doing wonderful. Like, you're much better off just acknowledging people's pain, I think.
Yeah, well, you and I do some work with Americans for Prosperity on the side, and they've been doing these events across the country that you actually got to drop in on one, guys. If you haven't seen Brad's YouTube material from this event, you've got to go check it out because it's so moving. But they're doing these events where they reduce the cost of gas to the price it was the day Biden took office, which was like, I think, $2.30 or something in that range. $2.38. And basically they offer, you have to get there really early and people line up and they have to cap it a certain number of people, but they let people fill up their gas tanks for that amount of money that day and are subsidizing that. And they're doing that to kind of prove a point and talk to the average American and how this is actually impacting them. And this is one thing I've said for so long. I just get so mad at these like uppity leftists that are constantly trying to say that people like you and I who are concerned with things like federal spending and the Federal Reserve and the price of gas are just these money-hungry capitalists who only care about our bank accounts. And it's like, that is so short-sighted. I care about these things because I know how they impact real people. I remember being somebody who had to budget out my salary and figure out how I was going to get to work some days because of the price of gas under Obama. I remember that being really hard for me. And so I know very well what those struggles day to day look like for people. And for many of these people, they're on fixed incomes, they have children, they have elderly parents they're caring for. These aren't small things. And so to diminish that experience and to basically tell people it's not as bad as they think it is offensive, it is harmful, and it's something that I think is really corrupt in our governmental system. And it's something that, like, I do blame both sides for some of the money issues we face, but when it comes to things like this, the left continues to double down on the policies that have created this mess and will never take accountability for it, will never, ever admit how their policies hurt people, and I'm fed up by it.